president's talking about yesterday haven't even gone into effect yet. Now he's threatening even more tariffs. I can increase it substantially. I can increase it to a much higher number. Do you think China believes him?
No, of course they believe him. Everything he said he's going to do, he's done. On this issue of the tariffs themselves, what we've had so far is 25% tariffs on $250 billion. And the remarkable thing, in a way, is that the Chinese have managed to basically devalue their currency by a full 10% and lower their prices. So they've borne virtually the entire burden of these tariffs. We've seen negligible to zero inflation on the tariffs. And if you think about putting 10% tariffs on these additional $300 billion of Chinese goods.
Which, by the way, are consumer products, a lot of these.
Correct.
Toys,
think about this,
these are things that
do a
people
little
buy.
math. Let's do a little math here, consumer math. When we started the tariffs back in March of 2018, since then, the Chinese currency has fallen by 10%. So even if we were able to if the Chinese could pass on the tariffs all to the consumers, we'd still only be back to where we were a little over a year ago. So this whole idea that somehow these tariffs are going to create inflation, we're just not seeing it. The Chinese are gaming the system. Why did we do this? I think that's the really important question.
So can I ask you a question, though?
Sure.
I understand, and I understand it's all part of a negotiation, but I just want to follow up on your point on pricing before you move on.
Sure.
You're talking about overall inflation, and I get it. If you're as you would put tariffs, talking about 25% in some components and not others, right? The impact on a price would not be a full 25%. One of the first things hit by tariffs, one of the very first when you all did this, as you said in the spring, was washing machines. A study conducted by 2 researchers at the University of Chicago and a Federal Reserve Board governor found that after those tariffs were imposed, the ones that you did there, washing machine prices have gone up by $86. Lazy Boy says it is directly passed. Well, let me give you one other number. Lazy Boy says it is passed on these tariffs to consumers. It says it directly.
But this is apples and oranges, Aaron.
Okay, but they say $42 extra dollars for a $1,200 sofa. That is real money for Americans.
You shifted the argument. You and I are talking about tariffs on Chinese products. You're talking about tariffs on steel and aluminum. If you want to have that conversation, we can have it, but it's a completely different conversation.
Well, it's tariffs that you're putting on things that come from China. We can talk about the distinction between components or finished goods.
A totally different issue. We put steel and aluminum tariffs on because we have to have steel and aluminum industries in this country. The president took a bold decision to do that, and those tariffs have been tremendously successful.
Okay, but I'm saying, right, I understand what you're saying, but I'm saying that washing machine prices have gone up by $86. So Americans are paying more.
And your point is what?
Well, my point is that the policies that you have put in place are costing regular Americans money. Hang
on, Aaron. We have steel mills blossoming in Toledo, Ohio, Marion, Ohio, Cuyahoga Heights. The Mesabi Iron Range in the state of Minnesota is just humming. I was down in Duluth personally watching iron ore pellets put on ships that were going across the Great Lakes to steel mills. Granite City, look, the steel and aluminum tariffs were a necessary action to defend our steel and aluminum industries from predation around the world, dumping, and those tariffs have been enormously successful.
So you think that's worth, okay, so that's your case, I get it.
I think it's better to have a conversation here about China because that's what the news is. And I think it's important for your viewers to understand why President Trump is showing leadership on this and why Senator Chuck Schumer came in right behind him and supported him.
So tell me why with these latest tariffs, I understand you're making the case you think it's worth it on steel and aluminum, that people are paying more. What about toys? What about shoes? What about iPhones? What about $42 more on a Lazy Boy?
Are you talking China tariffs? I'm telling you, Aaron, flat out, that you will not see significant consumer price hikes from a 10% tariff on these remaining $300 billion. The Chinese basically are handling this by lowering their prices and lowering their currency. And if you look at the first $250 billion, where we had 25% tariffs, we've seen zero inflation. So don't get out the violin and start playing it about how consumers
but on the 25%, but that's what I'm saying. Hold on, I understand. I know it's confusing to everybody.
When, in fact, a year ago,
impacted Lazy Boy. They say that they have put a surcharge on specifically because of that tariff. They say that. I'm not estimating. That's what they say. right? They say 3 to 4%.
So show me in the data
So
where
12,
there's inflation.
I know, but
there.
you're citing overall
I don't
inflation.
even know
I get it,
why
I
you're
would too
beating
if I
this
were you,
dead
but I'm
horse.
saying I'm an
I've
American.
asked and
Hold on,
answered
Peter, let me
your
just finish
question.
the point, please,
I
please.
think the
An
important
American
question
goes
is
to a
why
store.
are we taking this action? Can we talk about that?
Okay.
China, you know that you
You're
agree
taking the
with
action
me on
because you
this.
think they're violating trade policies, they're hurting the United States, and it's going to be better for consumers. I'm asking you to make the case of
Look,
why
I asked and
American
answered your
consumers should
question,
be paying
Aaron.
more
I
for
can't
things to
answer this
accomplish
any
that.
more clearly. China devalued its currency by 10%.
Yes,
over the
but
last
Lazy Boy
year,
is saying
and
it's
if we
$42
add 10%
more for a
tariffs to
$1,200
$300
sofa.
Look,
So
if
that's
you keep talking over
$42
me,
more.
you're not going to be able to hear what I say. So if we can
You
take
keep
turns
telling
on
me that
this.
they've devalued the currency, so
You
it's
just-
zero, and I'm telling
look,
you it's not
I'm
zero. So
telling
we're kind
you
of talking
that-
past each
that
other.
if we raise tariffs on 10%, by 10% on $300 billion, and China's already devalued their currency by 10% over the last year, how can you get out your
Well, then they have
crocodile
to do it
tears
another
here for
10%.
consumer effects? It's just not happening. That's the problem here. Nobody except the Retail Federation can point to anything, and they're making stuff up. It's just, look, here's what's going on here. The reason why the president raised these tariffs is for three reasons. One is that the Chinese are not fulfilling their commitments to buy any farm products. Two,
Yes.
they are killing people. Before this night ends, 100 more Americans are going to die from made-in-China fentanyl and opioids. By the end of this week, over 1,000 Americans are going to die from made-in-China fentanyl and opioids. And over the year, it's going to be 50,000 people. And they're accountants, they're doctors, they're war veterans who dodged shrapnel and bullets in places like Afghanistan, and they come home here and they die because of a speck of fentanyl dust that China makes. And so the president is standing up to China. He has the backing of this country on this. You look at polls, the Harvard-Harris poll says that 8 out of 10 Republicans are behind these tariffs, 53% of Americans, and we
Peter,
see on Capitol Hill
all of this,
bipartisan
all of
support
what you
for
say,
these policies,
this
and
may be true,
consumers
but
are
I'm
not going to
trying
pay
to
a
have
dime
you.
for this.
Okay, but listen, I think it's important to say, you are saying that Americans will pay more for some things. They are. They
Well, I
already
have not said
are.
that. I've told
The
you
head of the
today
Federal
on
Reserve
the first
said,
$250
we feel like
billion
weak global growth and trade tensions are having an effect on the U.S. economy.
Who said that?
Jerome Powell.
Oh, Jerome Powell, you don't get me started. Look, when Jerome Powell, okay, he lowered rates and he ended quantitative easing, and he should have quit there. Instead, he got on and he started talking, and the market went way down because he said the wrong thing. If you simply look, Aaron, at the Q2 data, you can see the footprints of the Fed's foolish policy or rate hikes all over that footprint. Here's what happened.
Okay.
When he raised the rates by 100 basis points over the last year, what he did was set up a scenario where he's suppressing American investment, he's pushing up the dollar and suppressing exports. And if you did the printout of the Q2 numbers, you saw that we lost 2/3 of a point of a growth because of lower exports
One
because
last
of a
thing,
higher
Peter,
dollar.
before we go.
Sure.
Companies are saying, right, in the most recent manufacturing data where companies report, tariff surcharges are now being passed through to all consumers, to all customers. We've heard it from car companies. We've heard it from jet ski makers.
I don't believe a word of that
So
stuff.
what I'm saying is, are you literally saying they're all lying?
I'm not saying they're all
passing
lying.
anything through?
I'm saying that I don't see it. I'd rather see it in the data than hear it from multinational corporations that have a strong interest in shooting down our tariff policy. And here's the thing, look, people are watching this show. Look, we should agree on this. China should not be stealing our intellectual property, forcing transfer of technology, hacking into our computers, manipulating their currency, and dumping fentanyl into our communities. If we can agree on that, the only question is, what do we do about it? And President Trump
I would argue
has
there's one
taken
other
strong
question, which is
actions
that
on
you
this
are
by putting
saying
the tariffs on.
you are saying there is a price to stop that. You think you can stop it, but there is a price, and Americans will pay part of that price, Peter. That's what I'm saying, and that's also a fact.
Well, it's not a fact. I'm telling you, I'm not seeing it in the data.
You're looking at, right, but if someone wants to go buy a toy, right, a toy that's made cheaply because it's made in China, and now they have to pay more. You know, it may not sound like a lot of money to you, but to some people in this country,
No,
it
don't
is.
play that card, because I come from poverty, Aaron. Don't be
Well, then
playing
you
that
know.
card. I know
Then
what
you
it
know
means
that the
to watch
cheapness
my
of
mother
goods
make
made in
50
China
bucks
has
a month,
dramatically
a
increased the
week
standard of
and
living in
try
this
to
country.
struggle to put food on the table. Do not play that card on me, okay? I'm telling you that the data does not say there's any inflation from the China tariffs on the first 250 billion. I'm telling you that the Chinese are strategically gaming this system by lowering their prices and lowering their currency. You were one of the best financial anchors for years, and I'm telling you that yuan is going to blow past 7 soon, and they're just going to keep devaluing that currency to try to take advantage of the American public.
So then
President
answer
Trump
this
is
question,
standing
Peter. Are
up
you
to
saying
this
that the
nonsense.
companies, when you go to the individual products, as I'm doing, and I see an increase, you're telling me that they are passing along an increase that they're not actually getting?
Are you,
so they're the ones that are
have
hurting the American consumer?
But you show me on a case-by-case basis.
I did. I
and
gave you
look
an
at it.
example of a lazy boy.
You have an example of a
I can give you many
corporation
other
issuing-
examples. I mean, companies are putting these surcharges on. You can see it with
Yeah,
jet
but
skis.
is
You can see it
is
with
the
Polaris
tariffs? Is it
Industries. I mean,
something else?
you
I'm
know as
telling
well
you,
as
it's
I know,
like,
Peter.
If the yuan goes down by 10% and we have a 10% tariff on it, it's a wash.
And then what you're saying is the companies that
so
are
let me
increasing
ask you this,
prices
Aaron.
are doing
It's like,
so when they're
is
not
your-
getting an increase, so
is
they're
your
cheating the
argument
American
here-
consumer.
Is your argument here is that somehow consumers are going to pay too much for the president to stand up for China to dump fentanyl into our communities?
I'm not
and
trying to
force
say they're
technology
paying too
transfer
much. I'm
and
asking you to
steal our
acknowledge that you are
intellectual
asking them to
property? I
pay
don't
something
understand
and
why
tell
you're
them why
pushing
they
this so
should.
hard. I mean, if you had a good argument, but the inflation rate's at 1.5%, well below the Federal Reserve's 2%. They never should have raised interest rates to begin with. The
Okay.
China tariffs are working beautifully in terms of getting China to maybe change their behavior and come to the negotiating table. But we are doing exactly what needs to be done for a country that's basically not fulfilling its commitments and basically stealing our intellectual property and our technology. And so let's see what happens, but show me some data. I don't want anecdotes. I don't want a press release from Lazy Boy. I want to see what's actually happening here, and I'm not seeing it.
All right, Peter, thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
Sure.
And next, Broken Promise.